Hello. Thank you for joining this session. Alright, just a second. Yeah, so we are live on LinkedIn and we are also live on YouTube. Okay, yeah, trying to put some things in place here and there. If you can hear me, please tell us where you're joining from. Yep, yeah, tell us where you're joining from. Yeah, it's a beautiful Saturday evening from Lagos, Nigeria, from my end, and I'm excited to be your host. It's a beautiful Saturday evening from my end again, and I am super excited to be your host. Yeah, okay. So, if you can hear me, if you can hear me, kind. All right. Tell me where you're joining from. Tell me where you're joining from. If you can hear me, yeah. So we're live on LinkedIn and also live on YouTube. So one sec. Okay. Huh. Yeah. One sec. One sec. One sec. Yeah. So we're live on LinkedIn, also live on YouTube. Um, again, it's a beautiful evening. If you can hear me, kindly tell us where you're joining from. Yes, please tell us where you're joining from. All right. Cool. Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. Tell us where you're joining from. We're nice to meet you. So welcome to Design Thinking with BayoGPT. Right. Um, and of course, um, so this is something new that we decided to start this year. Right. Um, I mean, Largely we talk a lot about design thinking at EAZY-DIGI, right? EAZY-DIGI is an education consulting organization, and what we're doing, our vision is to close the gap between school, society, and the workplace, right? So if you think about EAZY-DIGI, right, that's pretty much what we're doing, right? It's about closing the gap between school as an institution, society, and the workplace, right? We want to make sure that what the society, what the industries, what they are asking for with respect to knowledge, skills, and competencies is what school is focusing on, right? What we see in Africa today, and even globally, is the fact that there's that gap, there's that knowledge gap, there's that skills gap, and there's that competency gap, right? So, and the question then is, how do we close that gap? Because if we don't close that gap, learning will not, will not translate to social impact, right? If we don't close that gap, learning won't translate to social impact. People are going to come to school, they run in 12 years, but then it doesn't translate to social impact, right? And of course, for industries, uh, because they need certain types of talent and stuff like that, people are learning, right? But what they are learning doesn't equip them, right, to even enter into the workplace. So there's that gap, right, that heavily exists, right? And that's what we're trying to do at ECT, right? To close that gap. Okay, and so that's why the framework behind everything we do, right, fundamentally, right, is design thinking, right? Because design thinking is how they think in industries, right? It's how Google thinks, how Microsoft thinks, and so forth. We're very big on design thinking, right? We have a design thinking academy, okay, and we have a tool that we have designed to help teachers easily infuse design thinking into what they do, right? And that tool fact, it's Africa's first design thinking tool for teachers. I don't think you'll find another tool elsewhere, right, that does that. Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Roots. Thanks for joining. Hello, Roots. It's nice to have you here. Thanks for joining the call. Yeah, I see you on LinkedIn, Roots. Thanks for joining. Yeah, yeah. Thanks for joining the call. So, Roots is going to be on us sometime. Um, we're going to get into some real design work, right? I mean, this is something that we are seeing, right? So even in the classroom, we need more than teachers. We need design thinkers, right? As a teacher, you think about what you must become to be very effective in the classroom today, right? You have to become a design thinker. You have to become a learning designer in that regard, right? So yeah, we do have BayoGPT and we have that that was created, right? Before I show you BayoGPT today, and before we get into the real design work, right? There's something I'd like to talk about, right? I'd like to talk about two things quickly. I think they are very important to this conversation, right? They're very important. I mean, it's very important. You need to stay in the right association. You need to stay in the right community, right? People that are talking about how education is evolving and what it can become, right? Two things I'm going to talk about. And I'm going to share my screen. Quickly talk about this. Just give me a second. Let me share my screen so I can talk about this. Uh, yeah, just a moment. Uh, checking in. So we're not missing anything that that's showing. See my video. All right. All right. Yeah, guys, give me a second. My video isn't showing on LinkedIn. Yeah, so Ruth, you can confirm. You see me. Can you see my video on LinkedIn? Yeah, appears to be that my video is not showing on LinkedIn. So yeah, okay, yeah, yeah. Okay, so cool. Wow. Okay. Now I see. Okay, just a second. Yeah. Um, sorry, just trying to check what's up in my video. Just a moment. Okay. All right. Cool. All right. Okay. Great. Uh, yeah. So I was saying that there are two things that I need to talk about before we get into design thinking with BayoGPT. I mean, I talked about why for us design thinking is a big deal and why it's like super important to what we're doing, right? Design thinking is how problem is solved in the industry, right? Think about Google, Microsoft, think about Nvidia, think about Tesla. Design thinking is how problems are solved. It is how value is created, right? That's design thinking for you, right? That's how problem is solved. That's how value is created in those spaces, in those environments, right? And we need the environment, we need the reality of an sorry, we need the environment of a reality to prepare for that same reality. Right? We need the environment of a reality to prepare for that reality. If the reality in the workspace within the design thinking, then we need an environment of design thinking in our classroom because it's an environment thing, right? Um, so if we don't want our learners today to struggle to be able to fit into the society, into the workplace, the industries, right? It is compulsory that our environment in our classroom is captured, is designed, is focused on design thinking. It's very critical. And that connection is very possible, right? Like I said, design thinking is how problem is solved, how value is created. We do a lot of paperwork in the school environment, right? There's a difference between simple problems, right, and real problems, right? So most of the time, what we engage our learners with, right, it's not real problems, right? That's one thing of C, right? It's not often real problem, right? They do a lot of they engage a lot of paper problems, and if you weigh that as against what problem looks like, what we call problem in the school environment, it's not what they call problem in the industries. They are two different things, right? So if we're going to expose our learners early enough, creating the right environment, then we need to expose them to real problems, right? And design thinking is what makes that possible, right? With design thinking, you find your learners engaging with real problems, real challenges, right? And we're talking about how to solve them, how to get to the bottom of these challenges and these problems. All right, yeah, and that's why this is so important to you, uh, yeah, and to what you do, right? Okay, so once again, welcome to Design Thinking with BayoGPT, and I'm super excited to be your host, right? Again, it's a beautiful evening from Lagos, Nigeria, and whatever you're joining from, um, please let us know. Tell us your name, tell us where you're joining from. Um, I like to know. Um, Keeping my eyes on the chat room. Tell us your name. Tell us where you're joining from. It'll be nice to meet you, right? So again, I say that the two critical things that we need to pay attention to, right, as we go into this journey, right? Two critical things. Number one is the fact that every topic in every subject has a connection with a need or a problem in the society, right? Now, so this foundation is very important as we go on in this conversation, right? You need to know that and that's the foundation for design thinking in K-12. The fact that every topic in every subject, right, has a connection with a need in the society, right? And that's where it starts from. Every topic in every subject has a connection with a need in the society. Every topic in every subject, it doesn't matter the subject, right? Every topic in every subject has a connection with a need in the society. And so the question is, how do you discover that connection? So for you to be an effective teacher today, right? And and I always like to say that how to teach in this era, right, is not to teach. How to teach in this era is to first listen. Listen to the society, listen to the industries, then listen to your learners, right? How to teach in 2026 is not to first teach, it is to listen. Listen to the society, listen to the industries, then listen to your learners, right? Without listening, without empathy, right? Teaching in this era cannot be effective, cannot be effective. You need to know what the society is asking for. You need to know how your learners perceive learning, how they perceive what you're learning. Because from time to time, right, you want to be sure that your engagement with your learners is based on data, is based on insight, right? So teaching is not it's not just like an afterthought, right? It has to be based on insight. Very critical, right? So in listening to the society, listening to the industry, you're trying to find out what is the connection between this topic I want to teach in my class, right? And a need or a problem in the society. Because without establishing that connection, right, opportunity, right, to build real world problem solving skills, right? So what we're saying here is that we're trying to offer the coming generation the opportunity to build real world problem solving skills, right? And to really give them that opportunity, as a teacher, you need to find that connection, right? You need to have to say, what is the connection? What is the connection between what I'm teaching in my classroom today and what my learners are going on what the society and industry is asking for. That's the first thing I need to say, right? That every topic in every subject has a connection with a need or a problem in that society, right? And so if you can find that connection, then you are setting up your learners to become real problem solvers, right? So for example, I'm talking about something like mode. We're doing mode in statistics, right? And I'm going to connect mode in statistics, right, to a report released by uh, uh, let's say by Ted Cabal on there was one that I went to like that. This report was released and it was talking about boats, right? Boat ride, right? Talking about at different points in the year where they had the highest number of rides, highest number of orders, right? Yeah, high number of ride orders across various locations, right? You know, mode in statistics is about like which one is the highest, right? Right. So you see, we're talking about mode in statistics, right? And the context behind the conversation, right, is the report that the report released about boat ride and about where they've gotten the highest number of rides and all of that. Now, when I'm teaching mode in that context, you suddenly see the connection. You see, if we cannot establish this connection in the classroom today, you will lose today's learners. You will lose them, right? Because one of their needs is connection. Today's learners are looking for connection. They're looking for connection. Please, if you can hear me, can you type in the comment section connection? Please type connection, 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 connection. They have that need. Today's learners are looking for connection, right? It's not enough to stand before them. They are asking, like, okay, how does this connect? How does this connect to? They're trying to imagine how does this, right? Because without that connection, they will not value the experience. They won't value the learning experience, right? So you need to be able to establish the connection, right? So see the example I just gave, right? Mode as a topic in statistics too, and then the article that's talking about boat rides and where they got the highest number of rides and things like that, you know. And that's what we're saying, right? So one of the core needs of today's learners is connection. Is connection. I created a course last year talking about how to teach the alpha generation, right? You cannot engage them if you don't know their needs. One of their core needs is connection. The alpha generation is looking for connection. They are looking for connection, right? It is connection before curriculum. They are looking for connection, right? If you cannot connect the topic you want to teach with the real world, with the society, right? If you cannot offer that connection, you will lose them, right? The value, it's very technical. We are seeing something right now, right? We are seeing there's a perception problem, right? Most especially teenagers, they are beginning to undervalue learning. They are beginning to undervalue learning because they are seeing that, okay, my teacher is trying to teach you something and I can actually check it online on Google and learn what he's saying. So like, why am I really here? Like, why am I, what exactly am I doing here? Why am I really here? Especially for teenagers, right? Yes, seven grade upwards in that category, right? They are aware, especially in private schools, they are aware. They see this, they understand the technology is available to them. They're already using ChatGPT and the likes and stuff like that, right? So if you cannot offer them connection, the bigger challenge for teachers today is to offer that connection. Being able to offer that connection makes you relevant in the classroom today. Being able to offer that connection is what makes you relevant in the classroom today. If you cannot offer that connection, right, you're going to lose your learners largely. You lose them largely, right? So again, the question is, can you offer that connection, right? So I talked about that firstly. That every topic in every subject has a connection with a need in the society. Yeah, a second. Yeah, all right. So I'm back. Yeah, so connection, right? That's that premise that every topic and every subject has a need, has a every topic and every subject has a connection with a need or a problem in society is very critical, right? The second thing I'm going to say here is the fact that you know um, there are two kinds of people that are using AI because we need to context for the conversation is design thinking, right? Because AI has to be about solving real problems that exist, right? AI has to be about solving real problems that exist, right? If we're talking about AI, the question is it solving real problems, right? Right? What were the initial challenges and problems, and how is AI solving them for us today? Okay, that's the question to ask, right? And so we've discovered that there are two kinds of people that are using Gen AI. So talking about tools like ChatGPT, Claude, these generative AI tools, right? We have the people that go for the thinking behind the outcome. You can be engaging ChatGPT or Claude or Grok, right? And what you are interested in is the thinking behind the outcome it is given, right? So at that level, you are relating with the thinking, and the real thing is in the thinking behind the outcome, right? So I like to call that AI supported metacognition, right? AI supported metacognition. Thinking about your thinking with AI, right? That way you are getting smarter. So that's the first category of people, right? That engage AI. When they do, they engage AI and their focus is on the thinking. So those people, when they are prompting ChatGPT or Claude, right, what they are looking for is the thinking behind the responses. They are not they are not focused. They are not focused on just the responses, right? They are looking at the thinking. What's the thinking behind? Why is ChatGPT saying this, right? And as they interact with the thinking, they spend time. So for people like that, it's not necessarily that they spend less time, right? They even spend even more time. But every time they engage with these tools, they get smarter because thinking is rubbing on thinking. AI supported metacognition. That's the first category of people. And then we have the second category of people who are the fast users, right? They don't go for the thinking behind the outcome. They only go for the outcome. They only go for the outcome. What matters to them is the outcome, right? I need ChatGPT to do this. Has it done it? That's the outcome, right? And so the challenge with people like that is that they stay at the same level of thinking. Their creativity does not expand. Their creativity does not grow, right? Because they are not connected to the thinking behind the outcome. That's the issue. It doesn't grow. It doesn't grow. So what kind of user are you, right? Because when you hear BayoGPT, of course, AI comes to your mind, right? And we are pushing a narrative. And the narrative is the fact that your thinking time cannot be reducing because you are using AI. It doesn't work that way, right? Because if your thinking time is reducing, your creativity is reducing. And if your creativity is reducing, your usefulness is reducing, right? If your thinking time is reducing, your creativity is reducing. If your creativity is reducing, your usefulness is reducing, right? So it's very critical that you place yourself correctly, right? Don't be the type of people that are using AI and they are going for the outcomes, not focusing on the thinking behind the outcome, right? Because the whole idea is that you want to grow. Is that not? Don't you want to grow? Right? Don't you want to be more creative? Right? So and that can only happen if you focus on the thinking. So you're relating with ChatGPT, with Claude, and these tools, but your focus is on the thinking behind outcomes, right? That way, as you're using the tool, you are getting smarter. Because the truth is, every time you use ChatGPT, these tools, they get smarter, right? There's something called reinforcement learning. They get smarter. They get smarter. They get smarter, right? These things have been learning for more than 30, 40 years. They've been learning. What you are seeing them do today is a product of 247 learning, in decades of learning, right? That's why they sound the way they sound today. It's not magic. They have been learning for decades, right? Machine learning has been around for decades. They've been learning. They've been learning. They've learned so much. They've learned a whole lot about us so much, so much. So if you understand the depth of intelligence that is available, you will come to these tools patiently, and you won't be in a hurry to just come and go and just get outcomes. All right. All right. So I need to say those two things. And saying these two things, Ruth says I can't hear you. How about now, Ruth? Can you hear me? So Ruth, when you can hear me, please let me know. Um, I I believe my audio should the platform says yeah, but do let me know as soon as you can hear me, please. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, so that's where we are. That's where so those two things are very critical. They're very critical, right? When you come to use AI, be patient. Focus on the thinking. Yeah, thank you, Ruth. So focus on the thinking behind the outcome, not the outcome, right? Because BioGPT as an AI tool, right, is used that way. It's a BioGPT is a creative guide, right? It's a creative guide. A lot of teachers have that gap. One of the gaps that teachers had before ChatGPT and this was came, right, is creativity. There has been a creativity gap, right? And the coming of these tools can help us close that creativity gap if we approach it correctly, right? Yes, there's a lot of there's a lot of creative thinking that teachers need to be able to function effectively in the classroom today, right? So it's one of the issues we had, the creative gap. We had it big in education space, the creative gap. If you compare education as a sector to entertainment, you understand what I mean when I say the creative gap, right? People can sit down and watch a movie for 2 hours. When it comes to learning, they can't sit down for 2 hours. What's going on, right? So there's that creative gap. There's that creative gap, right? So people can stay and can listen and watch movies, watch season films and stuff like that, right? So but when it comes to education, they will start hearing things like attention span. It's just certain things like attention span, right? So the issue is that there's been a creative gap, right? And AI has the power to close that creative gap, right? So and that's what BioGPT is all about. I'm going to share my screen, right? And then we're going to get into a design activity, right? How do you take a topic? So as a teacher, you want to teach a topic, right? I know I said every topic in every subject can be connected with a need in a society, right? So how do you take a topic? How do you take a topic, right, and connect it, right, with a need in the society? How does that happen? How do you take a topic and connect with it? And how do you design that kind of experience whereby you are meeting one of the core needs of your learners, which is connection? How do you design an experience that connects your learners with the real world, real time? How does that happen? Right. This is what BioGPT was built on, right? And we're going to just do a quick demo of that. We'll run through what that looks like, right? So stay with me. So Roots, if you'll be kind enough, can you just give me a topic, right? A topic you want us to look at in a particular subject, right? So I want to work with Roots today because I see you on the call, right? So can you give me a topic in a subject, right? And we're going to use that the design experience. So Ruth, I have my eyes in the chat room. I'm waiting for your response. Give me a topic in a subject that you like us to focus on, and that's going to be yeah, yeah. Okay. Oh, now I understand. All right. So, yeah. Now I'm on biology. Okay. You can't tell me. Can't share the screen. Oh my, I'm trying to share my screen, guys. Just a moment. Why is it saying I can't share my screen? I'll try that again. Okay, so I think it's working now. Perfect. Perfect. Okay, now it's working. All right. So now it's working. Okay. So and of course, for you to get in, the link is biogpt.org, biogpt.org. It's going to bring you into BioGPT, right? So let's run this. Okay, so environment under science. So Ruth gave me environment under science. So Ruth, I'm going to work with that. Um, so let me try to log in quickly. Yeah, so this is how you log in when you come to BioGPT. Just come to start creating free. If you're a first user, you can use the platform for free. Um, and so we're gonna get into it. We're gonna focus on environment under science as requested by Root. Okay, I'm gonna continue with Google. Yeah. So Omonaze, I see you. Thank you for joining the call, Omonaze. It's nice to have you here. Thank you for your time. Yeah. So we're moving into BayoGPT. Yeah, thank you, Ruth. Yeah, that's the link. So as requested by Ruth, we're going to focus on environment, right? We'll focus on environment under science. Remember, the thinking is that every topic in every subject can be connected to a need in the society, can be connected to a need. So this time around, we are going beyond the conventional learning outcomes, right? The learning outcome has to be transferable. The learning outcome has to affect the society immediately, right? We're going beyond just cognitive learning outcomes to tangible learning outcomes. That's what design thinking does to you. As a teacher, design thinking takes you beyond the realm of cognitive learning outcomes into the realm of tangible learning outcomes, right? Your learners are being exposed to real world problem, real world value creation in that regard. That way, we are heightening the quality of learning in our classrooms, right? Okay, I mean, and when you come in, you just go to new design. Yeah, that's where you go to. You go to new design. And when you go to new design, you see the pop-up box. So under science, Ruth says environment under science. So Ruth, just to confirm, what class are we looking at? Yeah, what class? What class are we looking at? I know you said environment under science. But for what class? What class are we looking at? Right. I want to follow Ruth's lead. Yeah. So what class? What class are we looking at? Ruth, if you're still there. Yeah, science. Yeah, 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 yeah. So what class? Are we talking about year two, year three, year four, year five? What class? Grade two, three. Okay, fine. Copy that. So we're doing elementary science, right? Select the subject. That's the first thing, right? And then guess why I put the topic. So the topic is environment. Environment, right? That's the topic. Oh, sorry. uh, Environment. All right, and then we'll go to the next step. Yeah, so this is for grade three, and then we move forward. Right. Remember, this is a design thinking tool, right? So 40 for 5 minutes. So Roots, I guess. So I don't. Let me just say for 5 minutes. Let's yeah. So Roots, in your context, are we talking about rural without technology, rural with technology, urban without technology, or urban with technology? Which of the following category do you think best describes the environment of your learners? So you see, this is a design session, right? And in designing learning, using in bringing design thinking into your classroom, you have to consider the environment. I talked about the fact that how to teach is not to teach. How to teach is to first listen, right? What's the society that you're designing this learning for? What kind of society are we talking about here? That's very critical. When we bring in design into teaching and learning, yes, please. Yeah, of course, Omonaze, it's a paid platform, right? But then you get to for your first five designs is free. So you can test it out for your first five designs. That's very free. Yeah. But however, it's a platform that is highly discounted for teachers, right? Highly discounted. I mean, in the sense that it's so cheap for you to use monthly, um, quarterly, or even annually, right? For the whole year, and you're just having a nice time. All right. So now, Ruth, this is where I ask you the question. What skills do you want your learners to develop by going through this experience? Right? Because when we enter the domain of design thinking, we are thinking about how people, right, can add value to society. Right? So the focus is on skills, not on scheme. Not the scheme of work, but the skills for work. Right? So what skills do you want your learners to build by going through this learning experience? Right? Because that's where the value is. That's what the value is, right? Um, most of the time we teach them things, and after 2 months, 3 months, it's gone off their head, right? It's gone off their head. But when they build skills, it stays with them. It stays with them, right? It stays with them, right? So, Ruth, what skills do you want your learners to build by going through this experience? There's quite a lot of them on the screen. So, I mean, for the best experience, choose 2 to 3 skills. For the best experience, you should choose 2 to 3 skills, right? So, what skills do you want us to focus on here? Looking at what we have on the screen, what skills, what skills, what skills? So, Ruth, I'm waiting for your lead. What skills do you want? Critical thinking, problem solving, and creativity. Okay, where is it? There's critical thinking here, correct. It's problem solving, where is it? Correct. And there's creativity. It's creativity. Perfect. Yeah. So now Omonaze just asked a very important question, right? The question of what curriculum are there, right? Now, when it comes to the market, and I need to quickly say this before I move forward. When it comes to the market, so I'm going to talk about that, Omonaze. Just give me a second. This last part where you have additional information, this is where you provide any additional context, right? Because again, what we're doing here is design, right? We want to make sure that every context is properly factored into the learning experience. We want to ensure that from as per the learners, I said how to teach is to first listen. So you want to be sure that the context of your learners is factored into the entire design, right? So this is where you had such information, right? If you have them, you can just add them here. But in this case, I'll just move forward because of time, right? And then it's creating. So, Oman answer, let's talk about the issue of curriculum, right? Now, what is the place of curriculum in using a tool like BayoGPT? Now, this is it. BayoGPT is focused on the market, right? It's focused on what the market is asking for. And unfortunately, the market is not asking for curriculum. In fact, in the workplace, they will never ask you, sorry, in your school, did you do Nigerian curriculum or British curriculum or social curriculum? They don't ask that question. You never go for any job interview or anything what evaluation around curriculum, right? What are they asking for? What they are asking for is competencies. They are checking out for skills, right? So this is skills above curriculum. So anybody doing the Nigerian curriculum, doing the British curriculum, or even the American curriculum, as the case may be, right, needs design thinking, right? Because the market is not a respecter of curriculum, right? The marketer is a respecter of skills, of skill sets, of competencies, right? So it doesn't matter the curriculum you run in your school or learning environment, right? This is something that you can integrate into how teaching is done, right? And I'll take that a step further. So so you can see practically what that looks like, right? So Ruth, here's the design that BioGPT has just created for you, based on environment and focusing on grade 3, right, for elementary science. One thing you will see here is that BioGPT starts by focusing on a storyline and driving question. I said earlier that one core need of today's learners is connection. If you cannot connect the topic with the society, right, you risk losing them, right? You risk losing them. Okay. So the first thing BioGPT does establish that connection is that it gives you a storyline. So what that storyline does is to quickly connect the topic to the society. Here's an example. It says many of our urban areas in Africa face a big challenge with waste, especially plastic bottles and bags. These items often block drains, pollute rivers, and make our communities look untidy. What if we could find new and clever ways to manage this waste? You see what's happening right here, right? This deeply resonates with the kids and with their environment, with the society, right? It is presenting them with a problem that is connected with the topic in question, right? They are seeing that, right? Then the storyline ends with a driving question. And the driving question puts the learners in that, yeah, of course. I like how you put it, Ruth, right? Connection through storytelling. That's it. CTS. Connection through storytelling, right? Very important. And this is how we must teach in today's classroom. if we do not want to lose learners, in fact, as professionals, if we do not want to lose respect in the face of our learners today, right, this is very important, right? And so the storyline leads to the driving question. The driving question is to get the learners to take responsibility, to own the learning experience, right? Yeah, absolutely. Monazi, absolutely, right. And then the question begs for, how do we then factor these things, right? Into what we do, into like the regular summative assessment, right? How do we factor that into it, right? And thank you very much for asking this, and we're going to get into that shortly, right? So you see, there's a driving question: how can we, as grade three scientists, identify? You see, at this level, you have elevated the learners. I love this so much, right? You know, they're already feeling excited because you have elevated them. And I like to say this, right? That is important for us to not see them as students. Let's rather see them as talent. They are not students, they are talent, right? Because when we see them as students, right, student is a word we use to describe people within the school environment. But talent is how human beings are described in the society, right? Talent begins to speak about economic value, right? Begins to talk about economic value. The question is, as they are learning, what economic value are they adding to their society? So seeing them as talents is more important than students. When I work with kids, I see them as talent. And in my head, my thinking is, how do I offer them information, intelligence, expertise that increases their human capital value? How do I offer them such things, right? That increases their human capital value, because their talents, their human capital, they have economic value. I hope you know that today in Nigeria, there's something called GDP per capita, right? GDP per capita refers to the value of one Nigerian. That's what it means. So every human being in Nigeria has an economic value. We do. And sadly, that number has been reducing for more than 10 years. That's been reduced. Right now, it's about 800 or $900 thereabout, right? It has been reducing terribly. In a country like the United States, that value is almost up to 100,000. Think about that. That value is almost up to 100,000. But in a country like Nigeria, it's less than $1,000. Less than $1,000. That's the value of one Nigerian, right? So I think about my learners as talent, and I'm asking myself, how do I offer a learning experience that elevates their value? That elevates their value, right? So this is it. So they're raising themselves as grade three scientists, identify and propose creative solutions to reduce plastic waste in our school or community environment. Right. Now, BioGPT is a guide, right? It's going to guide you. But whilst guiding you, you have the responsibility, right, to own the design, right? BioGPT helps you to get started on a creative level, but doesn't take, like I said earlier, doesn't take away the thinking space for you, right? It helps you to get started. It gives you a guide that you can leverage, right? Because every teacher needs that guide. Every teacher needs that creative support, right? Because of the initial creative gap. Okay, so Omonazi, please stay with me. And Ruto as well. So students will investigate waste problems. So here's what's going to happen, right? Students will investigate waste problems in their local environment. They're going to analyze different types of waste. Remember the skills you selected initially, Ruth. Now those skills are showing up, right? Remember you selected problem solving. Hope you are seeing it showing up right now. Remember you selected creativity. Hope you are seeing it showing forth, right? Now they're going to analyze different types of waste, and they will design innovative solutions for reducing or reusing waste. Worst case scenario is that what they have is a prototype. That's the worst case scenario, that they have a prototype. There's something we say when it comes to design thinking in K-12, that the evidence of learning must either be a product, a service, or a solution. A product, a service, a discovery, or a solution. That the product of learning. So learning outcomes are not just cognitive, they are tangible, they have economic value. In this realm, we are very big on economic value, on social value, right? It is not true that learning outcomes only have to be cognitive. It is not true. It is not true. It is not true. We see it across the globe. We see teenagers doing amazing things. It is not true that learning outcomes have to just be cognitive. It is never true. It is not true that the best thing that should quantify our learning outcomes is grades on paper. It is not true. It is not true. As a matter of fact, this alpha generation, they are seeing we are boxing up their potentials, right? We're not allowing them to unlock their potentials enough because our learning outcomes are more in the cognitive realm. It is not true, right? So yeah, like I said, worst case scenario is that they are they're presenting a prototype, right? But you see, the evidence of learning a product, a service, a discovery, or a solution, right? It is not it is not good because most of the time we are seeing we are recycling information. We are recycling information, right? When our learners are talking to us, they are telling us what already exists. They are telling us what is known, what already exists. So there's a lot of recycling. Sometimes schools begin to look like recycle centers. That's what it means, right? The same information being recycled. You go to the same in the textbook. That's what the learners are talking about. There is no newness. There is no space for discoveries. No space for discoveries, right? Because we do not value discoveries as learning outcomes, right? Because everything is boxed up. Everything is boxed up, right? So we're saying that discovery as learning outcomes is very powerful, very powerful. These kids, these learners have the potential to discover new things that can move society forward. They have the potential. But the question is, are we asking them to do that? Right? Emphasis determines outcomes. Are we asking them to do that? What are we asking them? They will do whatever we ask them to do. They will do whatever we ask them to do. If we want them to get an A, they will get an A. If we want them to solve a problem, they will solve a problem. They will do whatever it is we ask them to do. Right? Now, Omonase, so this is what we're talking about, right? Which is the part I love the most because there's always that challenge of well, Mr. Bayo, when we now do this, what of the normal thing? They're going to write test, write exam. Yeah. So there's track A and track B that you find there, right? Track A is responsible for attending to traditional academic demands, right? To their TADs, to their traditional academic demands. Track A is going to take care of that. And what are we saying? What we are saying is that, and that's why you discover that at the beginning, there's that breaking. You see the time allocation, right? There's a time for track A, there's time for track B. Now, this timing is flexible. It depends on what you're dealing with. What BioGPT is telling you is that before you engage them for the day, have a solid plan. There has to be a time allotted to focus on track A, and there has to be a time allotted to focus on track B, right? Based on the need for the day, right? And so in this case, track A is identifying and classifying common environmental items as natural or man-made. Well, that may not be what's in your scheme of work, roots in your own case, but the point is what is in this traditional scheme of work. This is what track A takes care of, right? So things like students will be able to define natural and man-made items. Students will correctly classify at least 4 out of 5 given items as either natural uh, or man-made and things like that, right? So track A takes care of the traditional academic demands, right? And then BioGPT also gives you like a script. It says, welcome eco scientists. Today we're starting our big eco innovators project to help solve waste problems. But first, to be good scientists, we need to sharpen our thinking skills by learning to look closely at things around us and decide if they are from nature or if people made them. Can you see? We are talking about the traditional academic side of things, but then we are still doing this high level, right? And then, still on that track A, you can see the activities, right? And the goal of the activities is to ensure that they are grounded in the traditional academic demands, right? There's an exit ticket in that regard. Look at the picture of the plastic share. Is it natural or man-made? Explain why in one sentence. Now, you don't even have to use these things that Bayogipi is telling you here, but this is just giving you an idea of how to address the traditional academic demands. Just give you an idea, right? And then let's go to the track B, right? The track B, which is the real deal, right? So the real world problem here is that excess plastic waste in urban African environments, the impacting cleanliness, health, and drainage system. Now, what's the project work? Right? Today, learners will focus on identifying specific plastic waste problems in the embedded environment, school grounds, maybe another environment. And then individually, they're going to be brainstorming and sketching innovative ideas to reuse common plastic items, right? They're going to be brainstorming and sketching innovative ideas to reuse common plastic items, right? And what are the deliverables, right? Digital or written list of 2 to 3 specific plastic waste problems observed at school. You see, it's bringing it very close, right? Asking them to start from their school environment, start solving the problem from the school environment, right? Then 2 to 3 ideas for reusing common plastic items, right? What are the ideas available? And then there's a digital sketch of one repurposed plastic item with a label explaining its new use. Think about that, right? Now we have gone beyond the traditional academic needs and we're talking about the learner solving, providing solution to a real problem, right? And then there's the homework evidence that says find one plastic item. I worry a lot about homework. One of the biggest problems in the education system today is that thing called homework, right? Because homework is not supposed to be a continuation of traditional, like when kids leave that school environment, right? That's the opportunity they have to interact with the real world. But unfortunately, the homework we give them still disconnects them from the real world. Many homeworks are disconnected, they are not real, they are not authentic. They often don't give the learners the opportunity to interact with their real world, right? Can we change that? Can we change that? Can we change that? Says find one plastic item at your home on your community that you think is often thrown away. Take a photo of it, if allowed, and save. You see? Or draw it. Then think of a new life for it. See what is happening right here. Think of a new life for it. Right? Even in homework, we are recycling information, we are recycling knowledge. Right? You see, the kind of society that these kids will inherit, the kind of society they will live in requires that they are tougher than the way we are handling them. That's what drives me. I'm not looking at the present. I'm looking at the society that these kids will live in. Already, our society today is very complex. Think about the next 10 years. Think about the next 15 years. The society they will live in is going to be more complex. And the question is, what foundation are we giving them to easily thrive in that kind of society? What foundation? What foundation? So let's not take it easy. Let's allow them to interact with today's world, because if they cannot even interact with today's world, if they cannot sync with today's world, how are they going to be able to sync with their future world, which is going to be more complex? That's design thinking. That's the thinking. We are looking at the society first. And when we look at the society, we are saying complexity, complexity, complexity. They call it a VUCA word. The society is VUCA, VUCA. It is volatile, it is uncertain, it is complex, it is ambiguous. You are probably feeling it too. The society is VUCA. That's the kind of society they are entering into, that they will inherit. So we need to give them a very solid foundation that when they enter the society, they are not surprised. They can stand and they can thrive. As talents, they can add value to Nigeria, to Africa, and to the world at large. Right? That's how we're thinking about it. Right? Think of a new life for it and write one sentence explaining how it could be reused instead of becoming waste. Be ready to share next time. Right? So, I mean, Ruth, what do you think about this experience? Right? And then it doesn't stop there. There is the assessment and feedback part, right? There's room for peer testing where you allow the learners to say things like I liked or I wondered or one idea. Like I said, teaching cannot be effective without listening. You need to listen to your learners, right? Students pair up and use their tablets or computers to share their creative repurposing sketch, right? Partner A presents their sketch and explains the new use. Partner B provides feedback using I like or I wonder one idea. You see what is happening to them. This is the environment in Google and Microsoft, right? When people are bouncing off ideas, they are evaluating ideas. We often talk about the Bloom's taxonomy and the top of it, right? We talked about the evaluating, the analyzing, and creating. This is it in action. We need learners to be in that space. They need to be, it has to become their culture that they know how to evaluate knowledge, that they know how to evaluate knowledge, right? That's where they need to be, that they can engage in creative thinking, right? And take what does exist and build something new out of it, right? So students then switch roles, feedback can be spoken or quietly type into a shared document, that kind of thing, right? Yeah. So that's an example, right? Of what BioGPT looks like. And then there's the tech requirement. Yeah, there's a tech requirement, and there's also like low tech alternatives, right? Depending on the situation, right, to consider. And there are also like additional instructional resources, BayoGPT goes this far, right? There's an article here, right? Plastic waste choking Tanzania's Dar es Salaam, right? So there's this article about this particular problem, right? And by the way, you don't even have to probably use this particular article, right? And Omonaze says, I think this is tilted towards IB curriculum. Probably. But whether IB or no IB, right? The goal is that at the end of the day, right, we want to have an education experience that translates to socio-economic growth, right? So I think even beyond IB is the fact that whether it's Nigerian, British, whatever curriculum, right? When people learn, right, it has to show in society. It has to show. It has to show, right? So I don't believe that the Nigerian curriculum is useless. It is not. If you give me the Nigerian curriculum, put me in the Nigerian classroom, and you ask me to design learning for a Nigerian classroom, this is what you will see, right? So at the end of the day, it's not about the curriculum, right? It is more about the experience and the skills that learners have gathered, right? It's more about two things, right? The content and the learning experience. Learners are primarily a product of two things: the content and the learning experience. The content and the learning experience. Whether it's Nigerian curriculum or British or Canadian or American or IB, what is the content that you are exposing them to? Look at the content in this context, right? What is the content? And secondly, what is the learning experience? Look at the learning experience here, right? So learners are going to be a product of these two things. I can be teaching the Nigerian curriculum, and then my content, right, is articles from Forbes, right? Articles from Punch, right? Articles from I wouldn't teach without those things, right? In fact, I believe that when we're talking about instructional materials today, right, I don't believe in these things we put in the class, these charts and all those things. They are not solid. We cannot nurture innovation by things like that. No, 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 no. That's not sufficient. That's not. They will not live in that world. They won't live in that world, right? There's something I call the law of reflection, right? The law of reflection, because, like I said, learners are going to become what they see from the learning experience. What are they seeing? They become it. What are they seeing? What are they seeing? What possibilities are you exposing them through via the learning experience? Right? You design an experience and you are showing your learners what they can become in the future, and they are seeing that, wow, this is possible. And from there, that's the sparks begins to come up. They start getting inspired, right? We need learning experiences that can inspire today's generation, right? It's very sad that our textbooks are not inspirational. WAEC is not inspirational. JAM, right? GCSE, they are not inspirational, right? They serve a purpose, right? Of course, they're going to take the exams, right? But even in those spaces, and I should say it, they're already considering reviewing their curriculum and all this. Is that it's everywhere globally. In the UK, in the US, they want to review curriculum because everybody knows that what they have is no longer the best. Everybody knows. Everybody knows. So the question is, in your own space, in my own space, are we going to take responsibility? Are we going to lead this innovation? So I'm excited to have gone through this demo and to have shown what BioGPT is all about, and to have talked about design thinking with BioGPT today, right? Um, you know, it's the idea. Thank you so much, Omonazi, for being my and for Roots as well, right? I think you guys are going to be my guest in the next show, right? If it works for you, um, you're just going to be my guest in the next show, right? I'll bring you online and we're going to discuss together, right? So this is the first edition of Design Thinking with BioGPT, and it's something that we're starting out this year. So every 2 weeks we're doing this bi-weekly. We're doing this bi-weekly, right? And we're just trying to show teachers a different way to teach, right? A different way to teach to meet the needs of today's learners, right? We don't want teacher we don't want teachers to lose their value in the classroom today, right? We need to come differently. We need to show up differently, right? And that's what design thinking does for you as a teacher. And that's what we're doing in this. So it's a workshop, right? We're breaking things down, break the topic down, and see how we translate, how we meet a need, a problem in the society. Like I said, it'd be nice for you guys to be my guest in the next edition, and then just share experience. You break things down together, see what GPT can do, for how you think about, again, like I said, it's not about the outcome. It's about the thinking behind the outcome and how we interact with the thinking behind the outcome. So in the next edition, what are we going to be doing? We're going to be interacting with the thinking, not the outcome, right? Because what BioGPT gives you is a guide, a creative guide. The question is, what do you make out of it? All right. What do you make out of what BioGPT gives you at the end of the day? Right. So it's always a creative guide. Right. So yeah. Thank you so much, Roots. Thank you so much, Omanase. If you'll be kind enough, please share your experience on LinkedIn. If this was inspiring or great in any way, please share your experience on LinkedIn. I'd like to connect with that. I'd like to connect with you. And I'm always super excited when I see teachers, that are thinking in this direction. When I see teachers are saying no, 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 we cannot just give traditional. We need to go beyond the traditional, right? So thank you guys. Have made today's session very interesting, and I really appreciate your time, right? So let's do this again in the next 2 weeks, right? I'm going to reach out to you guys on LinkedIn afterwards, and let's see how we also keep inspiring other teachers, right? Feel free to share GPT with your friends and colleagues, and just invite them to also try it out and see how it helps them and help them take their teaching to the next level. All right. So thank you to everyone that has joined today's session. Right. I see the numbers going up and going down. So I'm sure that a lot of people join. Probably they are not just we're not just yeah, just hearing from them. But of course, if you get to listen to this recording afterwards, right, feel free to share your feedback, to share your thoughts, and then we'd like to connect with you again. Thank you, everyone, and thank you for your time. It's been an awesome time. I'm super excited. So this is how we get started with design thinking with BioGPT in the year 2026. I look forward to seeing you again the next edition in the next 2 weeks, right? Um, yeah. So yeah, signing off. Yeah, all right. Yeah, bye and bye, everyone. I'll see you soon in our next edition.